watching Diversity in Automotive.
Hi everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Welcome to Diversity in Automotive, exclusively right here at cbtnews.com. In recent years, we've seen women make strides throughout retail automotive, but black women oftentimes are underrepresented in key discussions and decision-making roles. So how do we elevate black women in the industry and ensure that resources are also directed to support them? Joining me now is A.V. Fleming, Executive Director of the Ford Minority Dealers Association, to share his perspective on this very important issue. A.V., thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you for having me on the show, and I want to thank you and your team for all that you do for putting the word out there for our industry to help us with diversity. So having a voice like you out there for us makes our jobs even better. So we do appreciate what you do, and we love supporting you for that.
Well,
Thank you
for those kind comments, and we're more than happy to do it. So why do you think black women are still being left out of the conversations?
Well, I think that for the retail automotive industry, which is a tough industry for all women, I believe that it's a legacy business as well. So the women that we do see that get the opportunities mostly come from within the families.
Right.
I think that one thing that we are able to do now within our communities is try to use these jobs that were once considered masculine, more sex neutral. Because when I was growing up and kind of dating myself, retail automotive was like a man's job. Sales positions were like a man's job. A woman's job may be considered like a nurse. But in 2024, these things have changed. And what we're trying to do now is to partner with other organizations that have women in career positions like these so that they can have opportunities in our industry. But if we don't create those pipelines, then it's hard for them to make the entry into this industry. Because one thing I do know about the retail automotive industry, once you get in it, you do not want to leave it.
It's right.
One of the industries that you can actually get into. There's a lot of opportunities. There's legacy growth that you can do for your family. So it has a lot of upside, but just to get in there makes a difference. And sometimes getting into the industry, you have to take on positions and work your way up, if you will, because these are in terms on the distribution side. On the dealership side, these are mostly all owned and operated by individuals.
Right.
So you come in too, there may not be a lot of slots available, but there's always room to grow up. It takes time.
Sure.
And if you don't have those opportunities, then it's hard to get in. So what we're trying to do is find individuals we can partner with, use the tools that we can make available to us, like NADA, for an example, the Academy, or NCM and their training, and NADA's university as well. And having a partner like Ford Motor Company, we cannot have a better OEM that supports diversity. And I think that's the key too. But right now, and in my career, being with Ford over the last 20 years, Ford has always been one that supports diversity and inclusion. So what we were able to do with our objectives, working with Ford's current team, we were able to talk about how we can grow individual pockets of our diversity, because sometimes we have to disaggregate diversity and say, okay, we have to spotlight on this particular group at this particular time. And I think now as we start to look at women in general, and I believe that Ford right now has a global initiative. It may be something that you could talk to somebody at Ford later. I don't have all of their in and outs, but I believe right now Ford is trying to do something globally, which will help all women. And if we can take our part from the Ford Minority Dealers Association and help focus on the ethnic minority women as well, and the African American women in particular, then I think it can help move that needle with the strategy.
Sure.
I think that the time now is, I think what we'll see in the future is more objectives accomplished because we're starting to put together a plan. I think the main thing you need to do is incorporate these type of objectives into the strategic plan. And once you do this over a 5-year period or so, now you can start to measure it. You can start to put the resources behind it. We can start to do more partnering with other people in other industries that are similar to what it may take to get into the retail automotive business, because it is such a capital intensive business. And we have access to capital for theirs. So there's programs through the SBA and other programs that can definitely help minority women, African American women, as well as what Ford will do to help. And Ford is a great partner for us when it comes to training and creating a bench of people that we're getting to become dealers. So we're very excited about that. And now we're going to just put more focus on the minority women and see how we can definitely grow that.
Sure. What role exactly do corporations such as the OEMs, the brands out there, and maybe large dealer groups as well, play in elevating ethnic women to leadership positions? And how can they create more opportunities for these relationships to flourish?
Well, and what we're trying to do is create a bench first, make sure we got candidates that are ready.
Sure.
And we have to manage the expectations, because it's something that it won't happen overnight. But if you can put yourself in position, if you can have the 4 C's, as we say, to have those capabilities ready for you, opportunities come. I think over the last 20 years, the retail automotive industry dealerships change hands probably 10% of the total. Mm-hmm. So there's always going to be dealerships available. There's going to always be opportunities available. Sometimes one has to probably look at their relocation of where they need to be or where they would be willing to go to do it. Then once you can kind of say, I'm willing to move out of the South and maybe go to the Northeast, mm-hmm. there may be opportunities for you to do that. It doesn't mean you may not get back to the South, but there may be more opportunities in the Northeast mm-hmm. of the United States. And once somebody is willing to do those type of things, I think to come in at certain positions to learn the business, mm-hmm. I think that's a challenge for anyone, especially in today's world. I know we pride ourselves on education and everybody goes out there and we push those kind of things. But oftentimes in the retail automotive industry, the education you may have had traditionally, you may still have to learn other things to be successful. Yeah. And that's where the OEMs, I think, step up, because they help to convert whatever a person has that I would say has the ability to do it. Now they're able to help put them on a faster track. And that's what Ford has been helping us with our programs. And they've been very supportive with us about partnering on training and building a bench and identifying the candidates.
Sure. Does Ford currently have black female dealers in their lineup of dealers?
We currently have them, but we don't have enough. Mm-hmm. That's why we want to increase that number. I believe we have about 7 right now that are actively in the general manager roles or ownership roles. Okay. But we want to increase that number. And then as we start to target it and making it available, how we can even help someone in a dealership. Let's say, for example, I'm working with a dealer that says, yes, I have a great sales manager, but now I want to put that person into the academy. Well, we have a program now that we do a co-op with Ford that we will help support with those funds to help that become a reality for that person and for that dealer. So once we get the dealers on board, then it makes a big difference for us as well to do it. And Ford would actually co-op with us for these particular individuals. Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to ethnic women that are in the industry now who are striving to move into leadership positions? What should they be doing? I mean, should they be reaching out to your organization or other minority associations within the industry to say, hey, here I am, and what do I need to do next in order to further my career?
That's a great question. Yes, and you're absolutely right. What we try to do is encourage them to become part of our association. Even though they're not a dealer, we want to get them in front of the people at Ford, because people always are interviewing you. Whenever they see you, they get to know you, and then they get to understand who you are. And also, we encourage them to go to NAMAD. We encourage them to go to NADA to really understand the industry. Mm-hmm. So once you understand the industry, I would say from the macro level, it makes it easier for you for the operational level. Right. And so you can understand what that commitment is, because oftentimes women have been stereotyped, because it's like, well, most traditional women, they have to raise the family and they have to do this. They're taking on double jobs, which is true, but it doesn't negate the fact that their family, their partnership will get behind them if they understand that the hours are going to be set as such. And, they have to work or they have to relocate. It's just something that I think that as a family unit, you start to understand, because as you look at the upside, there are just women in today's world that have those opportunities that I would say my mother didn't have back in the 50s. My mother was a nurse, and that's what women mostly did. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now there's opportunities like what my sister would be looking at. She's in sales and marketing, so the world has changed. And so I think that to your point, they have to become connected and networked into what they're doing, and understand that, once you see the culture of what it is, because right now the culture is going to be male dominated. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
But with being able to work within that culture and I think the biggest challenge for African American women and women in general is that when they come into the culture of being a leader in that culture, to have everyone follow them. Now you're the top person in that culture.
Right.
And to really help those within that culture grow, because nobody wants to be left behind. I think that's just natural. Sometimes when one sees one person get a job, now that's one less job for me.
Yeah.
But if we see somebody that can help me be the best I am in my particular job, then it makes the company better.
That's
and I
right.
think there's opportunity for women, especially African American women, to show that they're willing to do that.
That's right. And it seems as though that many of the publicly traded auto groups out there, the Auto Nations and Asbury and Group One and what have you, have made this a focal point in their businesses and running their businesses to promote those women of color into managerial positions, right?
Yes, you are seeing that, because from the public's and even from our standpoint, which we agree with, at some point, you can grow it organically, but at some point, we're going to look like society.
Yeah.
We're going to our job base is going to reflect what's in our community. And so if you have this particular group or sector in your community, you need to have them in your business. It's just good business. It's strategy that helps you with market share. It's that intangible that makes your business beat the other competition.
That's right. So it could be that you're not good enough to run a dealership, but you are good enough to possibly run the country, depending on how November works out, right?
Absolutely.
Do you think that the vice president's, her newfound fame now, where everybody knows her better and what have you, does that help the cause of realizing that we need more black females in the auto industry, and they've got what it takes to run organizations?
Absolutely. I think that it confirms what people see.
Sure.
Because we all believe that we have strategies, and over time you start to see people blossom. But it also helps us to understand, women don't have to be superwomen. They don't have to do things twice as hard and twice as fast.
Yeah.
I think if we give them that opportunity, just like we would anybody else, let them grow into it. I mean, like you said, the vice president was confident being the vice president and second on the ticket. But when she got pushed to the forefront, now she was able to do a different role. And I think that's what, let's use, for example, using African American women as an example coming into dealerships. Yes, if we pool them, they may all have the clerical jobs right now, or the service drive manager job. That may be the ceiling just because of the culture, as we said.
Sure.
But now to say, once there's an opportunity that a person brings one into these programs and let them see their slant on it, it just helps that team, that management team. Now you got a different perspective.
Right.
Now something different you can do to grow. And as we saw, at least using this political example, all of a sudden you put another person in front of a ticket, it brought energy. It brought something and that's a great point that we can use for talking about, women of color. Sure. It's that intangible, that energy. There's something to be said about energy. There's something to be said about having fun and enjoying what you're doing. And when you bring somebody in that can bring that energy and that enjoyment to what they're doing from a different perspective, it's just going to make your team better.
Sure. Looking ahead, what are your hopes and expectations for the future of diversity and inclusion within retail automotive?
I hope that we continue to level the playing field. I think that everyone should have an opportunity to excel to where they can be for their business, because it's good for the business, it's good for the shareholders, it's good for our community in general. So whenever we can tighten that up and bring in stronger management teams, stronger businesses within our community, that means we can hire more people, we can pay more taxes, we can let the business model work. And once we have all parts of our community working, that means that we're just a stronger country. And I think that's the most important part. I think Martin Luther King said something about always know what the weakest link is. If you make the weakest link the strongest, the the rest, then you got a strong chain.
That's true.
So it's been our goal to say, where are we at to make us better? Where can we continuously improve and keep growing? And if we have more women, let's say in the next 20 years, we see instead of 1% or less than 1% African-American ownership of dealerships, now they got moved to 10%. But what did they really do to the communities? How did it help the jobs? How did it help women technicians? How did it help non-traditional jobs that we now have? And I think it's just going to help our industry out.
I couldn't agree more. A.V. Fleming, Executive Director of the Ford Minority Dealers Association, thank you so much for sharing your perspective on this important issue on this episode of Diversity in Automotive. We very much appreciate it. Love to do a follow-up with you on this topic and maybe showcase some of those black females that you've got running dealerships today.
Yes, I'd like to have one come on the show with me, and we can do that. And one other thing we could possibly do, too, is look at the other resources out there, like the women's initiatives or what the SBA does with their bureaus and so forth.
Sure.
Now, if I can start to connect some of those entrepreneurs into the industry, I think that's going to also give us a better bench for people to keep those 4 C's.
Yeah, we'd love to host a show like that and get the word out and use our platform, to spread this information.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Always good seeing you.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks for watching Diversity in Automotive, exclusively on CBTNews.com.